Right. I remember to hit record. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Like I was saying, a lot of people watch our parent meetings after the fact. We know there's a lot going on in the evenings with different practices and events that your students may participate in. So we will get started. Feel free. There are looks like about 13 of us here tonight. But if you have questions, please feel free to put it in the chat. I've got my assistant principals, Miss Daniel and Mr. Owens, with me. I also have my ILTR instructional lead teacher as well, Miss Flint. So if you have questions, they will definitely be monitoring the chat along the way, and we'll make sure I know that there's a question if one arises. But we are going to go ahead and get started. Last year was the first year. And by the way, I'm Tiffany Weaver. I'm the principal at Mason Creek, in case you don't know who I am. But last year we started our presentation with data for the first time, and I kind of felt like it was like a State of the Union address. So that's why it's called State of Mason Creek Middle School. But really, it's just to go over our data from last school year, and we'll kind of look at historical data for our school. We'll also look at where we rank, just to give you an idea of how our scores are in comparison to the other schools in the district, as well as how we did with the state average. So we'll look at each of the areas. So if you're new to middle school, it is similar to fifth grade, where we take end of year assessment. So in middle school, sixth and seventh grade, they take language arts and math. And then in eighth grade, they get the joy of taking all 4 content areas. So they take math, science, language arts, and Georgia studies. So it's 4 in the eighth grade. We also have an algebra end of course assessment that is a high school credit course. So we have several state assessments. So we'll kind of look at that as well. And then one of the things that's really important to us is our school improvement plan, where we set goals for ourselves for the following year, so this school year, and how we're going to achieve those goals through our action steps. So tonight I'm going to be going through all of that, but again, please stop me if you have any questions. Sometimes I know that we start talking in acronyms as educators, so I definitely want to make it parent friendly. So I will try to make sure I go through each and every slide. But again, please let me know if you have questions. So I wanted to start to kind of show you, I think parents hear a lot about STAR. The last few years we've been doing STAR in several grade levels, all the way, I think, now through 10th grade. And so last year, if you have a current 7th or 8th grader, you will remember we sent home how your students did between the fall and the winter STAR. And so I wanted to kind of give you an idea of where we started with our students. STAR is a diagnostic assessment, and it will give a prediction of how students will score on the state assessment at the end of the year. It also gives us a lot of good information that our teachers use very often. We create intervention courses. So we have reading and math last year in connections. We also did something called preparing the pack for the first time last year. And so we use this data a lot. So when your students are talking about STAR, and I try to include it on the parent newsletter, that's because it's really important to us. So this year we've already done STAR. So all of your students have taken STAR. And in December and March of this year, we will actually take Beacon. And so we're excited to see all of the data that our parents and teachers are going to get from that. So this is for last school year. But in the fall, we take it usually in August. You can see how our 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade students performed on STAR. And then moving to winter, of course, we want to see growth from August to winter, because we are working with the students, we're teaching every day, and we're hoping that they're learning every day. And so we saw some growth in 6th and 8th grade. Our 7th grade didn't grow, so we were concerned with that, because you can see that they actually started the highest, so we wanted to continue to grow those students. In the spring, you can see that we had a little backslide in 6th grade. We did grow in 7th, and then in 8th we grew just a little bit. But then, it's what we did with that data in our March STAR, and how we prepared to ensure that our students really were ready for that state assessment. So you can see the difference between the Spring Star we took in March compared to our state assessment. You can see that we had some significant growth, especially when you compare it to how your students started in the fall. So I'm going to go through each grade level. I'll start with language arts and then I'll move to math next. So this is the historical data of how our students performed since 2018. That was actually my first year at Mason Creek. This is my 6th year as principal. And so it kind of gives you how our students have performed. And just a reminder, we didn't take it in 2020. And then in 21, most of our students, I would say a huge handful, probably close to 80% of our students opted out. So this is not all of our students. And so we really are trying to get back to the pre-pandemic years. I'm sure you've heard that before, but we are looking like, we took a little drop in 6th grade. These students were lower, we felt. And so when we get to our school improvement plan, you can see kind of how we address some of these concerns. To remind you about the different levels of GMAS, the red level is beginning learners. So those students are showing that they're going to have significant struggles in moving forward in the next grade level. Our yellow level 2, that's the next step up. Those students are developing learners because they understand some of the content, but they're still going to require some assistance and some remediation to get on grade level. Blue here is level 3, which is our proficient learners, and those students are showing that they're proficient with the standards in that grade level and should be ready for the next grade level. And then finally, level 4, which is the highest level that you see on your screen in green, that is our distinguished learners, and those are the students that have really gone above and beyond the standards and are doing very well. And so you can kind of see, again, where our students landed in 6th grade language arts. And then I mentioned, I want to tell you guys how we did in comparison to the 8 middle schools. We had the 3rd highest score. And I'll just tell you that, we're very competitive at Mason Creek. And so, we want to be great in everything. And that's what we encourage our students, great in the classroom, great on the field, just great people all around. And so we really talk about that a lot. And we do feel like it's important to make it a little competitive. So they will take it a little seriously. Obviously, GMAS is not a grade in middle school, but we want them to connect to that grade and show us and you guys as parents really what they can do. So 3rd is the lowest. Like we're 1st, 2nd, or 3rd in every area, which is our typical norm. And again, we encourage our students to really continue to want to be their best. 7th grade, you can see we had a huge jump. And just, as a side note, the students that we're looking at are different groups of students. And so they have different challenges. And that's why every year we look back at our data and talk about, our individual students. How successful was our reading class in connections? What about our preparing the pack? Was that beneficial for students that we did in March? And so you can see in 7th grade, we had a huge gain from the year before. But again, those are different students. But we were extremely excited to see how many students in 7th grade were proficient or distinguished. Of course, we would definitely love more level 4s. And so we're looking at how to really push our students from 3 to 4s because these students are now in 8th grade. So in 7th grade language arts, we had the highest. So 52% was the highest level 3 and 4 in our district. Moving to 8th grade, these students, you can see that they made huge gains. I don't know if you remember from their star, they grew the most of any grade level. Our 8th grade students were the students that went home in 5th grade when the school shut down. They may or may not have come in person their 6th grade year, and their first really traditional year of middle school was 7th grade. So we had a lot of work to do with this group of students, and they really were able to show us that they learned and grew a lot in the 8th grade. grade. And so these students are now in high school in ninth grade, and I know that they're going to continue to grow. But just to point out the amount of level 1 students, we only had 37 students in the level 1 category. Last year, our 8th grade group was over 300. It was like 322 at one point in the year. So it was a really large group of students. So we were excited to see that only 37 were level 1 at the end of the year. All right, before I move to math, any questions? And again, you can always type it if you don't want, and you can always email me later if you don't want to ask now. And I'm going to send this recording and the presentation out to you guys so you guys can look at it again later in more depth. For 8th grade language arts, we had the 3rd highest score in the district. Moving to math, so you can see the same kind of setup that I did for language arts. You can see for our STAR scores in fall, winter, and spring. We did have a teacher that resigned in the middle of the year for 6th grade math, and we saw the effect of that. Teachers are absolutely very important, and it's always really important to have the best quality teachers in your children's classes. And so we were able to get a long-term sub pretty quickly after that teacher left. But you can see there was a slide between winter and spring, but we were able to continue growing them before they took GMAS. So you can see 7th grade, 23 in the beginning, 39 at the end. The biggest gains for sure happened in our 8th grade. So our 8th grade students, again, they were those groups of students that may or may not have come in 6th grade. And so they were really struggling when they started in 8th grade last year, but they grew so much, and we were extremely proud of the growth. So again, same kind of setup that I did for language arts. You can see here, one of the things that we're looking at is we have a huge bubble of students in our level 2. So these students are now 7th grade students. So if you have a 7th grader, we know that we have a big bubble of students that need to be pushed on to level 3. So they were sitting at level 2, 41% of them. But we still have a lot of work to do with math for sure. You can see that traditionally, it's not that far off from how we were the year before, but it's not the highest that we've ever done either. So we definitely have work to do in math. As far as where we landed in the district, we had the 2nd highest score. In 7th grade math, same thing. We have a really big bubble of students in level 2, which is developing. They're essentially, when they score a level 2, they're telling us that they aren't quite there yet. And so we are really focusing on those students this year that just need that extra push. So again, it was huge growth from the year before, but not the highest that we've ever been in 7th grade math. But in the district, we were first. So this was the highest. So you can see our 7th graders had the highest language arts score and the highest math score. So if you have a current 8th grader, those are the students that earned those scores. And it was really fun to tell them because, again, we like to compete with one another. So when I told them at our class meeting, they were very excited. So I told them and challenged them to continue that in 8th grade in all 4 content areas. We hope to be first in each of those. And then finally in 8th grade math, again, those are the students that started at 14% on STAR. And so to land at 37%, we were happy to see the growth. But, there are still a huge amount of level 2 students that are in each of the grade levels. So that's definitely a focus area, is how can we ensure that we're not having so many students, about 40 to 44% of our students in that level 2 category. As far as in the district, we were third highest. In science, so remember, just our 8th graders take science and social studies. So we'll start with science. We have traditionally had the highest. You can see we were 57% the year before last and 56% last year. And Considering the struggles and challenges that our last 8th grade group had, we are extremely excited to continue to see that our science teachers are really able to connect. It's physical science. That's the subject that they take in science in 8th grade, physical science. And they're really able to use real life experiences, labs, and really get them to understand physical science. And so we were excited to see that it continued to be the first and the highest level 3s and 4s in the district. In social studies, 8th grade, we had 41% last year, 3s and 4s. I'm not sure why on the bottom chart it doesn't have what percentage it was, but you can see we have a really big bubble. One of the struggles with 8th grade social studies, it's Georgia Studies, it's a lot of content. And so we were really teaching our students up until the week before GMAS. So we're excited that GMAS has been pushed back 1 week. So we'll have a whole week more to make sure that we've taught every standard and been able to go back and review before GMAS. So, but based on this group of students, we were happy to see that we are still 41%. We always, of course, want to be better. We had the second highest score in our district. I have laid out, the state has already published the GMAS assessment scores. So if you're interested, you can just Google Georgia state scores, and you can look up any public school and their scores and how they did. And so I just have a comparison to our school and the state. And you can see that in each of the subject areas, our scores are higher than the state scores. And that's this percentage is the percent of students that are level 3 and 4, so proficient and distinguished. The only area that we have the same exact as the state, and we definitely don't want to ever be the same, we always want to be above, is that 6th grade math area. So the other ones you can see, like in science, we're 30 points higher than the state. So we're happy to see that. Any questions before I move on? And again, if you don't want to ask now, you can shoot me an email later, call me.
I actually have 2 questions.
Okay, great.
The first one is about the proficient to distinguished for math or any of the different studies. What is the process in place to get those proficient to distinguished?
So I think that, in the past, we really focused on our level 1s to 2s. And the students may or may not have noticed that we really changed how we did our placement into reading and math connections. We were putting 1s in there and hoping we could get them to 2s. And then we actually changed the second 9 weeks. We started putting the very top of the 2s into reading and math connections. And then for preparing the pack, we identified students that were on the bubble, whether it was the top of the 2s or even some of the 3s to push. And so we had never done that before. And we are looking to have groups that are just the high 3s that can push to 4s. Right now, we ensured, like at the beginning of this year, we have ensured that they're all in advanced classes. Mr. Owens does our scheduling. So we've pulled all of our GMAS results. We've pulled our STAR scores already for this school year and ensured that those students are in the advanced classes. And that if a student is a level 2 or even maybe a low level 3, that they may not be in advanced, because we don't want the advanced class to be watered down.
Right.
Because that's the perfect place for us to accelerate and provide even more rigor for those students.
Okay, that's exactly why I asked that question, because we had a lot of those issues in elementary school with the kids only having PC class once a week. The principal was saying, well, our deficient kids are now proficient. And I thought, like, that's not my fault. It's kind of like a watered down classroom. So that's
Yeah.
great to hear that you guys do that. And then on the other end of the spectrum, my other question is what programs or outlets, which it sounds like you mentioned some for the level ones that you're trying to get to level twos. You said there's some connections for math and reading.
Yeah, so right now we have reading because
Okay.
a lot of the math struggles, it's school wide. And so we're really focused for math because if you think about our language arts scores, we're close to 50%. So we have half, let's just say half the students that are really struggling at reading and the other half is not. Math, it's closer to like 70% are struggling. So we're really focused on tier one instruction. It's instruction for all, making sure that every single classroom, every single day is getting quality instruction. And so we will do something called preparing the pack. We just did it right before GMAS, but the teachers and the students surprisingly loved it a lot. And and it's funny because we pulled them out of connections for a day. So like instead of going to their first period connections, they went to a math teacher and got additional assistance. And people were like, well, can I have a preparing the pack? Like they wanted to do it because we really try to get the kids to want to be better. And so we're going to do that more often and earlier in the year. So again, last year we just did it it was the 10, or actually it was 8 days before GMAS. So we're going to do it every 9 weeks probably. We've never given Beacon before, and that's going to replace STAR for December and March. And so with our Beacon scores, I'm hoping that we'll be able to group those students even more for preparing the pack. But right now we do have a reading connections because we know that if you're struggling at reading, then you're going to struggle in every content.
Yeah. And is the feedback from teachers that we feel like the math is stemmed from like what we didn't learn in previous years and now we're moving on and we haven't learned the basics that we should have learned in like 4th and 5th grade, or like
And I know I don't want to call her out because I don't know, she might be at the ball field, but my math department chair is on the call, and we've talked a lot about foundational skills. And so last school year we did math warm-ups in every single content. So imagine a language arts teacher doing a math warm-up, but they did it every single day all year long, and they were foundational in that it could have been decimals, fractions. There's Miss Crow. And so, yeah, we really feel like the foundational skills of when they were at home during COVID, that was a huge struggle. Miss Crow, do you want to?
I was just going to jump on and say that we're finding that just like basic number sense is what they're lacking. So like Dr. Weaver said, we're really building that number sense in our warm-ups with our school-wide warm-ups and our individual class warm-ups. I know at least for right now, like we're already seeing like huge gains of number sense of just having just constant math, if that makes sense, just like bell to bell math and like the easy math, like we're solving logic puzzles and things like that, but they don't realize they're solving 1 and 2 step equations, and kind of bringing in that like real life aspect to our math to make them want to be better or know more about it. But it's really the lack of foundational and the number sense. Just they rely on a calculator, but they don't realize that if you put it in the calculator wrong, you're going to get the wrong answer. Or that the calculator doesn't know what you're doing. So we're just rebuilding all of that, really.
Okay. And just an idea for like programs as far as before school, or because I assume a lot of the kids who are probably in that level 1, maybe they come in on the bus and maybe they don't have a lot of time, but if there is room for maybe a program where parents can come in and volunteer and sit with one student and go over something that we know, maybe we don't know 6th or 7th or 8th grade level, but even just like basic math or reading, and just giving a student one-on-one attention. If there's a program ever like that created, like we'd love to know about that. So some of us who can give maybe an hour in the morning or something like that, to give them one-on-one, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm hoping, I asked the teachers to have it in by tomorrow, but we will have a tutoring schedule that will come out in the newsletter again, hopefully tomorrow. But every single math teacher we'll have a tutoring session. So whether it's before school, because I know some of us get here early because of elementary children that we have, some like to do it during lunch, but we're going to put it out to parents and students when you can get that one-on-one tutoring. And hopefully you'll find that you can go to any math teacher and get assistance. So you might really like Miss Crow and want to go see Miss Crow, but you might have a different math teacher. So we definitely are going to send that out soon, because we know that, you know, some students need a little bit more than the 70-minute class period. So absolutely. Thank you. And I think as you guys see me go through the next few slides, what happens in the summertime, my leadership team it has people from every subject area, every grade level. We have from connections to special education. We have a leadership team. And so in the summertime, it was actually, I think, June 1st this year, we get together and we look at all of the school's data. So we talk about celebrations that are academic, non-academic. We talk about how they grew on STAR. We talk about right score. We look at GMS data. We start looking at attendance, behavior, just student survey data about culture and climate. So we look at a lot. It's a full day's worth of work. And from that, we develop action steps. So what we feel like would really benefit the school to move forward. So the first thing that we definitely always have are goals. So these are our goals. They're based on 6% growth targets. So if you're looking at it, you're like, well, 41 plus 6 is not 44.54. So it's 6% of the potential growth potential, if that makes sense. So we know that 6% in some of these areas we could do better. So I always tell people, like, my thing is I'm not ever going to be happy with status quo. Like, even if we're first in the district, like, we can always be better. So that is our goal, to just always be better. So these goals that are in the 30s, I hope that we do not have any area that's in the 30s, but that is a 6% goal. That's where we're trying to get to. But I definitely expect our students to perform better than that. Even in Algebra 1, I mean, Ms. Crow teaches Algebra 1. We had one student that was a level 2, but, you know, 100% is great, but we're even talking about how many level 4s does Ms. Crow have, which she does have a lot of level 4s. So, like, we're constantly pushing ourselves to be better, but these are our goals that we will evaluate constantly. We have school improvement checkpoints where we are looking to see where we're at and how we're doing. So I wanted to start with showing you that these are our goals for this coming year. And these are the action steps that we are going to take to get there. So one of the things we noticed when we looked at our data is that our students that are learning English as a second language are struggling. And so vocabulary comes up a lot with all different types of students, but specifically with our students that are speaking English as a second language. So we wanted to implement some training for our teachers, because not all teachers have worked with students that struggle with knowing the English language. So Ms. Flint provided a training during pre-planning already, and we plan on doing quarterly check-ins with teachers on the understanding of reading strategies, decoding strategies that they can help students use. And of course, we're looking at our language speakers, but it's going to benefit everyone. WIDA is kind of a screener and standard of how to work with students that have English as a second language. And so we're excited to see that, because we have been talking about vocabulary needs for a while for our students. The second thing is that we wanted to ensure that teachers are identifying their lesson plans, the vocabulary. So up front, they know that these are the vocabulary words that students need to know. And our teacher, who is the ESOL is what we say, but it's English of second, the students that are speaking English as their second language. And then see, these are the acronyms I was talking about. So I want to make sure I explain them. The SWD is students with disabilities. So we want to make sure our teachers, those teachers who are providing specific interventions with those students that they know the vocabulary too, so they can preview them with students, they can get them ready for it, or they can review them along the week, use them in conversation. So we want them to identify, so all teachers are identifying their vocabulary. The third one is they're identifying their strategy as well. So those two things are in the lesson plans. Our administrators, Ms. Flint and I, we're in the meetings every week with teachers as they are writing the lesson plans, and we're ensuring that that vocabulary is a topic of conversation and completed in those meetings. The fourth thing is, if you're not new to Mason Creek, you may remember last year the MCMS composition notebooks that students did. And so part of those notebooks that they did in language arts is they did STEM words. So it's those prefixes and suffixes to help students understand how words come together. And so this year we decided that we were going to do the STEMs, the prefix and suffixes, in their science class. So every single science teacher every single day has a warm-up that includes prefixes and suffixes. So you should be able to ask your students tonight, like, tell me about your STEM words in science. And they should be able to tell you exactly what they're doing and how they're using and learning those words. So that we believe is going to help us with vocabulary and the deficits that some of our students have. The second improvement area is writing. And so we write in all classes, and I'll talk a little bit about our school-wide writing strategy in a second, but we emphasize that writing is not just a language arts teacher's responsibility. Writing should happen all the time. So our teachers wanted to develop a cross-curricular, so like an interconnected writing assignment that the language arts, science, and social studies teachers would work together to develop. And so it wouldn't just be, again, the language arts teacher saying we were going to write about this topic. It's going to be the three of them working together to develop a writing assignment that incorporates each of their areas. And so that's something that they feel would be important for them, not only because it's going to be content specific for those subjects, but it's going to ensure students see the importance of writing in all contents. The second one, so again, we had the warm-ups last year, but the language arts teachers felt like, again, the language arts teachers were doing math warm-ups. They wanted to do something that was going to really benefit the students in their classes, that they really could work with them. So a lot of times we don't have whole grammar lessons. And so they really wanted to ensure that they are reminding them of those good grammar things that they've learned in elementary school. And then they have mentor sentences and conventions as part of their daily warm-up. So again, you guys should be able to ask your students, tell me about what you're doing for your warm-up in language arts. Our third area is math. So one of the things we do in social studies, so social studies incorporates a lot of charts and graphs anyway. And so this is going to benefit math because they go hand in hand in that way. So social studies teachers are taking that on. So again, you should be able to ask your students about that tonight. And then lastly, Ms. Crow kind of mentioned the foundational skills and just having those math talks. So we do a spiral review of those foundational skills every single day in a math classroom for their warm-up. So again, all of these warm-ups are contained in a composition book that your students should be able to speak to. And so we, again, do it every single day. Ms. Flint takes on the task of developing them, and the teachers give her feedback, like these are maybe too easy. Let's try these standards, or our students really struggling in this area. And so she adapts them based on the needs of the students. So again, these are essentially there to help with those foundational skills that we believe they're missing. So another issue we have seen from the pandemic, I mentioned we look at attendance data. Our attendance is pretty bad. And we have found that when we looked at our attendance, we have students that miss, you would be surprised, like 30, 40, 50 days of school. And remember, students only come 180, it might be 178 now. So they're missing a really big chunk of school, and we can't remediate gaps if you're not here. And so it's just really developing larger and larger issues with those specific students. So again, we're very competitive. And before COVID, we had started doing these attendance challenges, and the kids really got into it. And so every month we're going to have an attendance challenge. This month we're doing, and we have a revolving trophy that will travel to each grade level. And so this month, for the month of August, it's just very simple for them to get into it. It is the highest percentage of attendance in their first period, their first academic period. And so the winner of it will earn the trophy, and we'll have three, one for each grade level. And then they'll also get set surprises. Like sometimes we've done cupcakes, sometimes it's Takis. Like usually they like food the best, but that's one of the things that we're going to do. We're going to get back to having those challenges school-wide. The other thing is we're going to develop an incentive plan. So we probably will be giving away like free game tickets to basketball, free entry to a dance, things like that. And then also, again, they like food. So it will probably incorporate some food, snacks, and treats and meals. But we're going to have an incentive plan for students that have either perfect attendance. But again, we know that students sometimes are going to be absent. And so we included that students that have less than 3 unexcused absences per 9 weeks, they would also receive something. So the perfect attendance students obviously would get like a grander reward. And then the students with 3 or less in a 9-week period, we would do something for them too. So we just want to continue to talk about attendance often. That's for our students and our teachers. So if we're asking our students to be here, we're asking our teachers to be here as well. So we definitely know that this is an issue that we are trying to get away from with the pandemic. And our last one, hopefully your students have told you something about Wolf Den. If they haven't, you should ask them about Wolf Den. And so we say home is where your Wolf Den is. And so every Wednesday morning, they start in their Wolf Den. And one of the things that, if you haven't found out yet, if you have a 6th grade student, middle school is hard. Most of my time in education was actually in high school. So when I came to middle school, I really found out very quickly that middle school students struggle emotionally with their friend groups. They're just, some people say their children become different people. So middle school is somewhere where they need somebody to connect with. And we want that to be one of our teachers. And so we want them to know that we care about them, that they're important. And so we have a place for it's non-academic. They don't do anything academic related. So for those 30 minutes, we have just topics. So if it's near maybe a grading period, they just talk about like, well, how are your grades? Like, why are your grades like that? How's your attendance? Like, how's it going with your friends? We talk about like healthy relationships, because there's usually a lot of drama in middle school with friend groups. And so we try to emphasize the importance of like that teacher is not a classroom teacher. So for the most part, students have teachers that don't teach them. So I can't remember, like I think our 8th grade teachers have 7th grade students. Our 7th grade teachers have 6th grade students. So they have a different teacher that they don't normally get to see, so they can kind of develop a different type of relationship with. So it's a little bit like advisement or homeroom, but with the twist. So we have Wolf Den every week for 30 minutes on Wednesdays. And then we also wanted to establish a student mentor program, because sometimes they don't want to talk to an adult, they want to talk to a peer. And we have a lot of really very helpful and motivated and kind students that want to help others. And so we're going to have a program to ensure that students, if they want a mentor, that they can absolutely get a mentor. And so we'll be kicking that off soon. So they can talk about academic or non-academic as well. So I really like both of these. Like a lot of my day, I focus on instruction, but I also know that if students are struggling with relationships with others or relationships with teachers, then it's not really going to matter if they're not cared about when they're here. So we're going to continue Wolf Den. We had it last year, and we'll continue it again this year. So one of the things that I want to ensure that you guys know, in addition to our school improvement plan, the district has set expectations of us, and we really have emphasized the importance of those with our teachers. So to ensure that our students have quality teachers in the classroom, we want to make sure that we have set expectations as well. So these are the 5 district areas, and then I've got Mason Creek next. But a standards-based classroom is really important. So we want that everything within the classroom is based on the standard that the students should be learning. So we're looking at the environment. Is it an environment conducive to learning? So we've been talking about, like, are your lights on? Like, can students see in your classroom, or does it look like nap time? Those are things that we've kind of gotten away from talking about, but we've been talking about this year. We've talked about how often are you using the computers. We really are trying to take a step back from that and provide more rigor in different ways with hands-on learning. We're talking about, our essential questions and having, really thoughtful conversations about what does the standard mean. So we're really emphasizing that this year. Our common assessments, Mason Creek's been doing common assessments as a school for several years, but the district has common assessments that we'll use to really ensure that our students are learning the standards appropriately and at an accurate pace. The other thing is we meet in PLCs, and that's professional learning communities, every single week. So our teachers plan together. So we're blessed in the fact that we don't have any teacher that's teaching by themselves. So like a 6th grade math teacher, a 7th grade science teacher, they have other people teaching that, and they plan together. So they UBD is understanding by design, and they have units and lessons that they do together to ensure that it doesn't matter if you're on the Gray Wolves team or the Arctic Wolves team, you are getting quality instruction on both teams with both teachers. Because a lot of parents will say, well, what's the best team for my child to be on? My goal is for it to be any team, and it doesn't matter where the computer places your child. It's consistent quality instruction, no matter the teacher. We also have a resource list for our teachers to use. There are resources that the district have purchased that we want to ensure that they know how to use, they're comfortable using it. So like today, Ms. Flint did a professional learning training on Illuminate. That was really helpful. So we have a list of resources that we want our students to experience with their teachers. And then I mentioned professional learning communities. Those are those planning period meetings that teachers are involved in. And I feel like I've talked a lot, so I'm going to wrap up very quickly. But our Mason Creek, we have some non-negotiables as well. And so these are things that we included several years ago in our school improvement plan, and they've just become the expectation. So they're not in our school improvement plan anymore because everyone knows that we do these things. So we don't need to keep saying like it's an action step because we already do it. So we have PALs. And if you have a 6th grade student, you might want to wait a couple weeks till they really understand what PALs is. But if you have a 7th grade and an 8th grade student and they've been at Mason Creek, they should absolutely be able to tell you what PALs is. PALs is a school-wide reading strategy. It stands for Peer Assisted Learning Strategy, and it's essentially where they're able to read to a partner. And there's more behind it we try to pair students together based on their Lexiles. And there's a coach and there's a reader, and they read aloud to one another. And it can sound really loud when everybody's reading out loud, but I promise it works. And then they have some strategies after they read aloud to ensure that they actually understood what they read. And so we use PALs in every content area. So math's using it, science, social studies, connections teachers are using PALs. Everyone is required to use PALs. The next one is our writing. We have a school-wide writing strategy, and we are moving to races. And so you may have heard of RACE, and the last few years we've used RACE, but we added the S this year. So it stands for restate, answer, cite, explain, and summarize. And so we want to try to get our students into the habit of writing consistently in all classes. So every single week, teachers are required to put on their lesson plans a PALS article that they're going to do the peer assisted learning strategy with, and then a races writing prompt. So it could be as simple as Ms. Flint and I were talking about. It could be a paragraph. You could give them a writing prompt when they come in the door and tell them you want them to write it in the races style. And so we just want our students to understand what complete writing looks like. And so again, if you have a 6th grade student, you might want to wait a couple weeks, but everyone else in our building should know what races is. And then finally, we use classworks as well. So it is required for teachers in math and reading to use every single week. And your students might be like, oh, classworks day, but it actually really is very beneficial. It's based on what the student needs. And so I know we were talking a little bit about, how are you helping those level 1 students or helping the level 3 students. Classworks is individually designed to assist those students to get to the next level. The first few weeks of after STAR, Classworks is designed an individual learning plan for each student that they can work on. Some teachers create their own activities based on student strengths and weaknesses, but Classworks is a differentiated support that we use school-wide in every single math and language arts classroom. So I just wanted to add that it's not what we put in the school improvement plan. It's not all that we do. We do other things like these things as well here. So again, that was a lot. And I thank you guys for staying and hanging with me. But does anybody have any questions right now? And I put Year of the Wolf because that's kind of our theme. I told the students and the teachers that, like, if any year that I've ever been here in my 6 years, this is the Year of the Wolf. Like, we've got the best teachers that we've ever had. We have the best coaches. I have the best assistant principals. Our ILT is very, very experienced and beneficial for our teachers. So it's the Year of the Wolf. So I can't wait to see how this year goes. So please ask questions. If you don't, again, I hope that you all have my email address and know that you can email or call at any time. All right. Well, I just want to let you know that every single month we plan on doing a virtual parent meeting of some kind. And we do it virtually because it's very easy for people to join. I know you may be in the parking lot or, wherever you may be, you can join. And then also there's a whole bunch of people that aren't here and they can watch it later. So you'll see tomorrow, I'm going to add this presentation to the newsletter I'll send out, and I'll keep all of the videos in like a section. It will just say parent meetings, and you can go back and watch them. So if you miss one, it's okay. We try to do a variety of times. Some are during the day, some are at night. So if you have any ideas for something that you think parents would want to know more about, please share them with me. These are the first semester, but we definitely can add additional ones. We need some ideas for next semester, but we feel like these are some that you would really benefit from. We're adding Remind this year. So we're going to do one about parent communication. It's usually a very big jump for 6th grade parents from 5th grade to 6th grade as far as communication. So we've got some tips that we recommend for you. Discipline is very different in middle school than elementary school. So that's a good one to attend. Our APs do that one. We have new math standards. So Ms. Flint and I will be presenting about the rollout of the new math standards for the state of Georgia. And then we definitely want our students reading and writing at home. So we're going to provide a training on just some stuff that you can do with your student at home to encourage that. So those are just some upcoming meetings I wanted to highlight. But again, if you have any ideas, please share them with me.
I'm just asking. I know it's a little... I don't think it's completely off topic, only because, first period, some of the students have core classes, right? So the bus situation where they're losing out on valuable instruction time. Is there a plan of action? Like, what's going on with that? I know, look at her face.
Yeah, I'm people tell me all the time. I'm sure people have texted me today, like, fix your face. Like, I'm sometimes too transparent. So yes, the buses, just as much as they are driving y'all crazy, it's bothering us too. So Miss Daniel is over buses. She is down there every morning, giving me the information, and I sent an email with our counts because Miss Daniel has been counting how many students are on each bus and then what time they are getting here and departing. And I've shared my concerns with the transportation department as well as the operational director. So they assured me
Right.
that as soon as I know they hired one, so bus 311, I don't know what bus you're talking about. One bus has a driver now, and so that
Mhm.
one should be fixed. But it's tough, and
Yeah, it's hard
it's a
because like
struggle.
right now I'm able to manage. I'm figuring something out, but soon I may not be able to go. And I'm like, if she misses half her first period, like
Yeah, I will tell you. Last year, I mean, we had late buses for a little while, but on a typical day in last school year, most buses were here by 8:50. And so we're hoping to get back to that. I know we started the year with 2 vacant drivers, meaning that the bus was being driven by somebody else. And we're hoping, but please know that I continue to advocate for them to be here by 9. We want them to be here by 8:50 so they can eat breakfast and get to class and not feel rushed. So I
yeah.
know. I'm sorry. What bus is it? So I can make a note.
It's 380, right? 328, 328.
Okay.
328. Yes.
Yes. I know. I'm sorry. But it does affect instruction. So, if we're
Yeah.
raising the standard for our students instructionally, like they got to be here. So I understand. And I promise you, they've heard me talk about it.
Okay, thank you.
So, anything else that I mean, it doesn't have to be about this. It can be about whatever you guys might have a question about. All right. Well, we have our open house coming up September 7th, I believe, and it's right after the first progress report. So you'll get their grades and then be able to come and talk to the teachers about, the first 4.5 weeks of school. So definitely put that on your calendar. I believe it's 5:30 to 7 on September 7th, but I'll send reminders out.
I'm sorry, my daughter would like me to ask, at what time does FCA start again?
8 o'clock
8
in the
o'clock.
gym.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Well, I will stay on for a little bit longer. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Have a great evening.
Bye. Where'd Miss Abercrombie go? Thought she raised her hand.